Hey everybody, Josh here. So during the Apple event, I noticed something a little strange. So every year when Apple announces their new phones, they like to boast about how much better they perform in low light. And this year was no different, with Apple boasting a 2x improvement from the iPhone 13 Pro. But I was a little bit confused when they announced that the new main 1x lens would have a slower f1.78 lens as opposed to the f1.5 lens found on the 13 Pro. Now, if you've ever dabbled in photography or filmmaking, you'll know that the lower that number is, the better the lens, or the more light that the lens will let in. And the interesting thing is that ever since the iPhone was announced, this f-stop number has always either stayed the same or gotten smaller. Now, going from 1.78 to 1.5 may not sound like a whole lot, but when you calculate it, it actually accounts for 25% less light, which is pretty significant. Now, why did Apple go with a slower lens? I'm not entirely sure, but there are two ways that Apple is combating this slower lens. So the first thing that Apple has done is make a larger sensor for the main camera.
65% larger than the one on iPhone 13 Pro.
Now, larger sensor means more light being captured, and taking a closer look, the iPhone 14 Pro has a much larger pixel pitch, which is the amount of space between each pixel. If it were my guess, I'd say that this change alone definitely compensates for the 25% loss in the lens itself, but that's not all. So the second thing that Apple is doing to combat this slower lens, if you paid attention during the iPhone 14 announcement, you might remember something Apple called the photonic engine. Sounds a little bit crazy.
This is our enhanced image pipeline that dramatically improves low light photos.
Now, there's a whole lot of jargon that gets thrown around, like the neural engine or deep fusion, but all of these things sort of point to Apple's way of implementing software into the photography experience. You see, every time you snap a photo on your iPhone, there's actually a bunch of processes going on in the background. The computer is analyzing for faces, identifying the sky, the foreground, the background, the light and dark places, and really just tweaking all of these layers to combine into a single image. Now, what Apple has done is basically tweak their image processing pipeline to allow for more uncompressed processing, which I'm not even sure I understand, and I'm not sure if Apple wants me to understand because that might be their secret sauce. So they didn't really go too in depth into what they're doing. But Apple is saying that this tweak alone will account for a 2x low light improvement, which is pretty significant. Actually, that's pretty crazy. Now, what's crazy to me is that Apple's able to do this through software. Traditionally, photography is pretty much all about hardware. Photographers are always searching for the best lens with the best aperture, with the biggest sensor. So we're definitely entering a new era, at least in smartphone photography, where software is equally as important as hardware, if not more important. Now, the best part about this photonic engine is that it can benefit all of the cameras on the new iPhone, whether it's the front-facing camera, ultra-wide, or telephoto on the 14 Pro. So on all of those cameras, Apple is claiming to have a 2x improvement in low light, which we will be putting to the test once I get my hands on one, so make sure to subscribe. Now, another interesting piece of innovation that Apple is finally implementing is called pixel binning. So the new iPhone 14 Pro has a 48 megapixel sensor, which is amazing, but isn't really anything new. In fact, 4 years ago in 2018, we had a phone with an 108 megapixel sensor. So clearly this is old tech. Now, all of these phones use a process called pixel binning, which is the process of grouping a set of pixels to act as one. Now, the main benefit to this is in well-lit conditions, the pixels will act individually, but in a low-light environment, the group of pixels are combined and treated as one, which increases the surface area per pixel, allowing it to capture more light. When the pixels are binned or grouped together, this also reduces the resolution of the photo by 4 times, thus making the 48 megapixel sensor act like a 12 megapixel sensor. This process allows the iPhone to capture amazing details in brightly lit situations without sacrificing low light performance.
With every photo, the quad pixel sensor captures 4 times more information than ever before.
This sort of technology has already been implemented in, like I said, smartphones, drones, and action cameras, so it's nice to see Apple finally adopting it. But Yeah, hopefully you learned something new, and those are all of the quirky ways that Apple is improving low light photography with the iPhone 14 Pro. Now, I personally love learning about stuff like this, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to see me put the iPhone 14 Pro to the test. All right, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.